The Simpsons has been hiding things from you for 36 years. Not just Easter eggs, but real mathematical proofs. A complete hidden action movie and secret messages buried inside a cartoon man's ear. Most people treat it like background noise. Today we're breaking down every secret, ranked from the stuff you vaguely know to the things that will genuinely change how you see the show. Starting with the one everyone brings up at parties, the predictions. Every few months, a news article goes viral with the same headline, The Simpsons predicted it again. And look, those articles are not wrong. They're just not telling you the full story. The genuinely eerie ones are hard to dismiss. Bart to the Future, a season 11 episode that aired in March 2000, featured President Lisa Simpson inheriting a massive budget deficit left by President Trump 16 full years before the 2016 election. The episode didn't just mention Trump either. It framed his presidency as a punchline so specific, so casual, that it implies the writers thought it was too absurd to ever actually happen. When You Dish Upon a Star from 1998 showed a background prop that read 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company. Disney acquired Fox in 2019, 21 years later. In a 1993 casino episode, German-accented magicians were mauled by their white tiger on a Las Vegas stage, a decade before Siegfried and Roy's real-life incident with their tiger, Manticore. But here's where it gets complicated. Showrunner Al Jean has a completely rational explanation for all of it. Over 750 episodes across 36 years, the law of large numbers does the work. Throw enough darts at a broad enough wall, and some of them will land in a bullseye. The show predicted Bengt Holmstrom winning the Nobel Prize in 2016, but the episode aired in 2010 and listed him as a candidate, which he already was. The curling gold medal prediction worked because the show predicted a US win against Sweden, and the real match happened to follow that exact script in 2018. Most of the famous ones have a rational explanation like that, hiding just behind the headline. And then there's the Trump one, which Al Jean admits is harder to explain away. The predictions are the thing everyone knows, but underneath that, there's a layer of secrets the show has been hiding in plain sight that almost nobody has ever noticed. Starting with something hiding inside Homer's face. Homer's face. Matt Groening signed every single episode of The Simpsons, and nobody noticed for years, not in the credits, inside Homer's head. Look at Homer in profile. The zigzag of hair on the side of his skull forms the letter M. The ear directly below it curves into a GMG Matt Groening. It's been there since 1989 on every piece of official Simpsons art, every animation cell, every promotional poster. Groening still draws it that way when he sketches Homer for fans at conventions. The show itself eventually referenced it, with Homer semi-breaking the fourth wall in a season 16 episode to acknowledge the initials, which is either a fun wink or the writers admitting the joke had run its course. Either way, it survived 36 years of production before most people noticed it, but the face secret goes deeper than Groening's initials. Here's one that almost nobody talks about. God and Jesus Christ are the only characters in The Simpsons drawn with 5 fingers. Every other character, Homer, Bart, Marge, Mr. Burns, literally every human being in Springfield has 4 fingers per hand. That's standard animation shorthand. 4 fingers are cheaper and faster to draw, and they look fine on screen. But starting with Homer the Heretic in season 4, whenever God appears, he has full 5-fingered human hands. The animators drew him with complete hands, deliberately, as a visual signal that he exists outside the rules of the cartoon universe. He's the one entity in Springfield who isn't bound by the show's logic, and the show knows exactly what it's doing with this. In season 5, Homer describes his nightmare vision of a monster with pink skin, no overbite, and 5 fingers on each hand, then runs away screaming. The joke only works if you already know the rule, which the writers assumed you didn't. It's a punchline aimed at the 1% of the audience paying close enough attention to notice. That's the thing about the design secrets. They're not hidden to be found. They're hidden because the people making the show couldn't help themselves. And nowhere is that more obvious than in what the writing staff smuggled into the math department. The Simpsons writing room has more advanced degrees than most actual universities, and the staff spent 36 years using a cartoon to troll mathematicians worldwide. Al Jean entered Harvard at 16 to study mathematics. David X. Cohen holds a physics degree from Harvard and a computer science master's from Berkeley. Ken Keeler has a PhD in applied mathematics, also from Harvard. Jeff Westbrook was a Yale computer science professor before he decided writing Bart Simpson jokes sounded like a better career. J. Stewart Burns holds math degrees from both Harvard and Berkeley. These are not people who accidentally snuck math into a comedy show. They did it deliberately, carefully, and with the specific goal of confusing people who thought they were smarter than a cartoon. The best example is the blackboard scene in The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, Season 10, Episode 2, 1998. Homer scribbles equations while going through a midlife crisis, and one of them reads 3,987 to the 12th power plus 4,365 to the 12th power equals 4,472 to the 12th power. This is a problem because Fermat's last theorem, proven in 1995 by Andrew Wiles after 358 years of attempts, states that no equation of that form can ever be true. Punch Homer's numbers into a standard 10-digit calculator, and it checks out perfectly. It looks like Homer just casually disproved one of mathematics' greatest achievements on a chalkboard in a cartoon about a nuclear safety inspector who eats too many donuts. But extend the calculation to more decimal places, and the answer is off by 0.0000004%. David X. Cohen deliberately engineered a near miss so precise it would pass calculator scrutiny but fail under serious mathematical examination. Then he sat back and monitored internet forums. He was delighted by the confused posts from people typing the numbers in and writing things like, "I don't understand what's happening right now." On the same blackboard, a second equation combines the Planck constant, the gravitational constant, and the speed of light in a way that predicts the mass of the Higgs boson particle. CERN confirmed the Higgs boson's existence in 2012, 14 years after the episode aired. Cambridge physicists reviewed the equation and called it not a bad prediction at all. In a background detail, on a prop, in a show about a cartoon family in a town with a name nobody can place. There's a hidden ASCII message in a season 7 Halloween episode too, but that one requires a working knowledge of hexadecimal encoding to decode, which, given who wrote the show, was entirely the point. The hidden movie. For the first 5 seasons of The Simpsons, whenever a character flipped on the TV, you might catch a brief clip of Rainier Wolfcastle's action character McBain blowing something up, shooting someone, or delivering a one-liner. They looked like random cutaway gags, filler, the kind of background joke the show threw in constantly to reward people half paying attention. In 2011, a fan assembled every McBain clip from seasons 2 through 5 and played them in chronological order. They form a complete 4-minute action movie, beginning, middle, and end. McBain discovers that his senator is running a drug cartel. He confronts his captain, gets suspended from the force, and watches his partner get murdered in retaliation. He goes rogue, storms the villain's skyscraper with zero backup, and throws the bad guy off the roof to his death. There is a coherent villain, a clear character arc, a revenge motive, and a climax. The clips span dozens of different episodes across multiple seasons, each one looking like a throwaway gag in isolation. Assembled, they are a structurally sound short film that the writers hid inside a television show without ever drawing attention to it. Executive producer Al Jean confirmed it was completely intentional. Think about what that actually required. The writers had to plan the full McBain narrative before season 2 even aired, track it across 4 years of production, make sure each clip worked as a standalone joke so nobody got suspicious, and trust that no one would ever bother to put the pieces together. For 22 years, nobody did. The McBain movie sat inside one of the most analyzed shows in television history, hiding in a format so obvious nobody thought to look at it. But the McBain film is the grandest version of a much older habit. The show has been hiding things in fast-moving text and frozen backgrounds since the very beginning. In Homer Badman Season 6, the tabloid show Rock Bottom scrolls a list of corrections so fast they're invisible at normal speed. Pause it. Among the legitimate corrections. If you are reading this, you have no life. That's the show talking directly to the person willing to freeze frame a corrections crawl on a mid-90s VHS recording, which, fair enough. In Bart's Comet, Waldo from Where's Waldo appears in a crowd shot, then is replaced by Mr. Spock in the very next frame. Both are gone before your brain can register either one. The show put them there anyway. That's the pattern. Hide it well enough that only the right kind of obsessive finds it. And if you're a 59-episode recluse who writes scripts in a diner booth, you have very specific ideas about what the right kind of obsessive looks like. The voice secrets. Dan Castellaneta has voiced over 717 distinct characters on The Simpsons. That number alone should end the conversation. It doesn't. Homer's iconic Dio was never written in a single script, not once. Every Simpsons screenplay across every season simply reads annoyed grunt. Castellaneta invented the sound during a Tracy Ullman show recording session, pulling it from Jimmy Finlayson, a mustachioed Scottish character actor from 1930s Laurel and Hardy films who used a long, drawn-out do as a polite substitute for a word he couldn't say on screen. Matt Groening told Castellaneta to tighten it up. He did. The word was added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 2001 and is now a registered sound trademark. The most famous sound in television history was an ad lib borrowed from a bit part actor born in 1887. Homer's actual voice started as a Walter Matthau impression. Castellaneta found it physically impossible to sustain through 9-hour recording sessions and evolved it into something his throat could handle long term. The I am so smart SMRT moment from Homer Goes to College was a genuine misspelling during recording, caught on tape while Castellaneta was singing to himself. He instinctively corrected it. The writers realized it was the most Homer thing that could possibly happen, and they kept the tape. Nancy Cartwright auditioned for Lisa Simpson, found the character description too thin, and switched to Bart midway through the session. She got the role on the spot. Yeardley Smith auditioned for Bart, but was considered too high-pitched, so she became Lisa, a role she has now played for over 3 decades and remains the only main cast member who essentially voices a single character. Julie Kavner's contract contains a clause that forbids her from performing Marge's voice in public settings because she believes leaves, it collapses the illusion she spent 36 years building. When the cast appeared on Inside the Actor's Studio, the cameras cut away from Kavner every single time she slipped into Marge's register. For the Simpsons movie, some of Marge's emotional scenes were recorded more than 100 times before Kavner was satisfied. But here's the one that nobody talks about. Dan Castellaneta voices Sideshow Mel as an impression of Kelsey Grammer, who voices Sideshow Bob. Castellaneta is doing an impression of another actor on the same show for a character who exists specifically as that actor's sidekick, and the joke has been sitting there in plain audio for 30 years without most people registering it. The voice booth has been hiding things as carefully as the writing room, and the writing room, it turns out, was hiding the biggest secret of all inside the show's most fundamental character design. Krusty is Homer. This isn't a theory, Matt Groening has confirmed it. Krusty the Clown was always supposed to be Homer Simpson's secret alter ego, and the show never did anything with it. The original concept was pure satire. Bart worships a clown on television, idolizes him, defends him, collects his merchandise. That clown is literally his own father, performing under grease paint, whom Bart dismisses and disrespects at home every single day. The joke was that Bart's hero and his disappointment were the same person, and he was too blinded by the TV screen to see it. Groening outlined the reveal episode. The writers broke the story. Then they looked at how complicated the ongoing logistics would be and scrapped it entirely. But here's the thing. They never changed the designs. Look at Homer and Krusty side by side. Same body shape, same face structure, same mouth, same basic silhouette. Krusty is Homer in clown makeup, and that is not an accident. It is a deliberate visual remnant of a concept the show abandoned but never bothered to erase. Every episode Krusty has ever appeared in is a ghost of a punchline that never landed, and Krusty isn't the only character design carrying a secret the show never delivered on. Marge Simpson's giant blue beehive was always supposed to be hiding something, specifically a pair of rabbit ears. Groening's pre-Simpsons work was a comic strip called Life in Hell, built around anthropomorphic rabbits, and his original plan was to connect the Simpsons to that universe through Marge's hair. The rabbit ears were earmarked for the series finale, a reveal that Marge had been concealing them her entire life. Evidence that this was a real plan and not just a rumor survived in the most unlikely place, the 1991 Konami Simpsons arcade game. When Marge takes damage and gets electrocuted, rabbit ears briefly pop up out of her beehive before disappearing. The animators knew about the plan. They put it in the game. The finale never came, or hasn't yet, and the ears have stayed hidden inside a cartoon hairdo for over 30 years. The show is full of these abandoned reveals, secrets that were planned, seeded, and then quietly set aside when the show outlived the timeline its creators imagined for it. Nobody expected The Simpsons to still be running in its fourth decade. Groening designed a series finale Easter egg into his lead character's hair, and then the show just kept going, which raises the obvious question of what else is still in there, waiting, because some of the deepest secrets in The Simpsons aren't in the character designs or the voice booth or even the writing room. Some of them are hiding in the geography of a town that technically does not exist. Where is Springfield? Springfield does not exist. That's the point. But the way it doesn't exist is far more deliberate than most people realize. Matt Groening confirmed in a 2012 Smithsonian interview that Springfield was named after Springfield, Oregon, the city nearest to his hometown of Portland. He chose it specifically because Springfield is one of the most common city names in America, meaning every viewer could plausibly claim it as their own. The chalkboard gag the show ran after this confession made the intent explicit. The true location of Springfield is in any state but yours. The contradictions are not continuity errors. They are the product of active, ongoing effort. In the Simpsons movie, Ned Flanders tells Bart that Springfield borders Ohio, Nevada, Maine, and Kentucky simultaneously. That is not a mistake that slipped through. Someone wrote it, someone approved it, and someone animated it, because the point of the joke is that the geography is impossible, and the show wants you to know that it knows. In Bart's comment, a congresswoman admits on the floor of the U.S. Congress that nobody is entirely sure which state Springfield is actually in. Behind the laughter, the fake documentary episode placed Springfield in northern Kentucky on its original broadcast, then changed it to southern Missouri for reruns. Season 32 resolved the question by placing Springfield inside a fictional 51st state, which is the show's version of closing a debate by setting the building on fire. And yet, the street names have always been consistent. Flanders Street, Lovejoy Street, Terwilliger Boulevard, Kearney Street, Quimby Avenue, all of them are real streets in Portland, Oregon. The town's geography is deliberately unsolvable, but its DNA has been pointing to Groening's hometown for 36 years. The joke and the truth occupy the same space at the same time. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. Springfield has a Pacific coastline harbor in several episodes. It is also a short drive from Washington, D.C. and others. It has a desert to the south, a snowy mountain range nearby, a massive gorge, a rainforest, and an ocean beach, all within apparent driving distance. The town does not obey the physical laws of American geography. It exists in a cartoon space that borrows landmarks as needed and returns them when the episode ends. What makes this a secret rather than just a running gag is how precisely the writers have maintained it every time a clue surfaces that might pin Springfield to a real location. Another episode contradicts it it within a season or two. The impossibility of Springfield is actively maintained. Someone in that writer's room for 36 years has been making sure the town stays lost. And that kind of long-term, deliberate, invisible effort is exactly what the final secret on this list is built on. Because somebody has been hiding something in the opening credits since 1989, and the number it spells out changes the way you see the entire show. What Maggie costs. Every episode of The Simpsons begins the same way. The clouds part, the camera swoops into Springfield, the family races home from their respective days, and they collapse onto the couch. You have seen this sequence hundreds of times. You have almost certainly never looked at the cash register. When Marge checks out at the grocery store in the opening credits, the register scans baby Maggie along with the groceries. The total that flashes on the screen is $847.63. That number is not random. It is the precise estimated monthly cost of raising a baby in America in 1989, the year the show launched. The writers looked up the actual figure, put it on a prop that appears for less than 2 seconds at the start of every episode, and never mentioned it to anyone. For the first several years of the show's run, this detail existed entirely for the benefit of the people who made it. The register total changes in some episodes to reflect updated cost of living figures. The showrunners have confirmed the change is intentional every time it happens. They have been quietly updating a 2-second grocery store gag to reflect American economic reality for 36 years. That is the final and most important secret of The Simpsons. Not any single Easter egg, not any one hidden detail, but the cumulative picture they form. This is a show where the staff calculated the real monthly cost of infant care and hid it in the opening credits, where a Harvard mathematics PhD engineered a fake Fermat counterexample precise enough to fool a calculator, where a complete action movie was distributed across 4 seasons of television and left for someone to find 22 years later, where the series finale was seeded into the lead character's wife's hair, and then the show outlived the timeline anyone planned for. And then there are the words. In season 7, writers Dan Graney and David X. Cohen were challenged to invent 2 fake words that sounded plausibly real. Graney coined embiggen. Cohen coined cromulent. The joke was that both words were completely meaningless. Merriam-Webster added embiggen to the official dictionary in 2018. Scientists had already used it in a published string theory paper before that. A Supreme Court amicus brief cited cromulent. The entire point of both words was that they were fake. The dictionary entries objectively ruin the joke, and the writers find this extremely funny. Homer's email address, chunkylover53@aol.com, was registered by writer Matt Selman before the episode, revealing it aired. Within minutes of broadcast, the inbox was completely full. Moe's Tavern phone number, 764-84377, spells Smithers on a phone keypad. Bart's locker combination at Springfield Elementary is 362436, the exact measurements from the Commodore's brick house. These details exist because the people making the show could not stop themselves from putting them there. Nobody asked for any of it. Nobody expected anyone to find it. They did it anyway. That is the real secret. The Simpsons has always been 2 shows running simultaneously. One of them is a cartoon about a family in a made-up town. The other one is a 36-year private joke between a writing staff and the fraction of the audience willing to pause, rewind, and look closely enough to be in on it. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.